Qual è la relazione tra metabolismo e tumori ed è possibile intervenire su di essa come strategia terapeutica per i pazienti oncologici? Noi ne parliamo con un esperto, il professor Jason Locasale, che è intervenuto su questo argomento durante un convegno promosso dall'Accademia Nazionale di Medicina che ha riunito esperti italiani e internazionali all'Istituto Nazionale dei Tumori di Milano per discutere della relazione tra metabolismo e immunologia dei tumori ed è il primo evento su questa tematica in Italia. Professor Locasale, which is the relationship and the interplay between metabolism and the human malignancies?
Yes. So it's long been noted that cancer cells and tumors, in order to grow and divide and replicate and essentially, become pathological, where cancer is a disease where cells grow and proliferate in ways that are inappropriate, is that they have very different metabolic or nutritional requirements than their normal cells. They have the metabolism, which is basically the way in which cells and organisms process nutrients, and all the biochemistry that's associated with that essentially those processes are linked to all of the processes that are related to malignancy, whether that's uncontrolled cell growth, whether that's evading cell death, whether that's cell invasion, cell survival, and so on. What we learned is that each one of these processes has metabolic features to them that are different from their host counterparts.
Is it possible to interfere with metabolism simply with dietary interventions in cancer patients?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I mean, it's something I've been fascinated about for a while. I mean, I think when I began studying metabolism, I was always interested in ways in which metabolism could be driving the development of different pathological components and what the source of that metabolism is. And what we're learning is that the metabolism is a complex interplay of both the genes and the environment, both the nature and the nurture. And the major source of what that environmental component of metabolism is the diet. So there's possibilities in thinking about how diet can link to metabolism, and changes in that diet can lead to the altered metabolism, perhaps in ways that could lead to differences in the outcome of something like cancer. It's a very complicated question because we know that cells and organisms have a lot of homeostasis and feedback, and whether that diet can eventually reach the tumor in ways that are sustainable, I think is an emerging area and something that we're studying. But we're finding in the lab, at least in preclinical settings, is that it seems to be possible in certain conditions.
And are there also therapeutic approaches, I mean drugs in development to target metabolism in cancer patients?
So targeting, given that we are well appreciative of the ways in which metabolism interacts with the rest of cancer biology, that naturally leads us to think about ways in which we can disrupt the metabolism. And we talked about the diet, and that's an interesting thing because that's something that people can change very quickly, and reversibly. But thinking about things like therapeutics and drugs is also important and perhaps more sustainable, arguably more sustainable in many ways. And so given that metabolic enzymes are naturally evolved to bind to small molecules and metabolize small molecules, I mean they're generally thought to be druggable, and so there's a lot of possibilities in terms of designing new molecules that could influence features of cancer-related metabolic pathways. There's also the possibility of thinking about metabolism drugs that are used for other indications, things like hypertension or like general cardiovascular disease, things like diabetes drugs, cholesterol drugs, like whether those might be able to be used for cancer is another interesting area.
How do you see the future of research in this interesting area that is diet and therapeutics in cancer?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the past 15 years we've really worked on and worked out a lot of the cancer biology, the cancer cell biology, where we have, how the cell grows and how it changes its metabolism and how it survives and proliferates, and the metabolic requirements. What we're beginning to understand and what really is going to be the next 15 years, I think, is figuring out how the rest of the body and the metabolism of the rest of the body, of the metabolism of the host, and how that interacts with cancer. Things like, I just flew in from the States, so things like jet lag and circadian rhythms, how we learned about obesity, how that interacts, how the altered metabolism with obesity, how the gut microbiome, some of the work that I presented was, related to new areas and how diet might influence cancer, things like exercise, how that interacts with the host, things like the liver, the muscle, the tissue around the tumor, the tissue where the tumor is going to metastasize in, how all of that interplays with the biology of the cancer cell is really is the future of this field as I see it.